Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And on today's episodes, we look at the three biggest questions facing the franchise heading into the offseason, including Erik Karlsson, what to do in goaltending, and how does this team start to improve? So all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked on Sharks your first listen. You can follow along or subscribe wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well. That way you know when the newest episodes come out. I want to thank you guys for hanging in there as I took vacation last week. Recharged, refreshed, ready to provide the content in the off season. So, the Sharks ended up losing the last two games, finishing fourth in the old Tankathon standings. So we're going to kind of go into this offseason, assuming they will be fourth, at least until the draft lottery. And that's just going to be kind of the premise that we work at with this offseason and kind of trying to build the roadmap for this offseason. But first, before we do all that, we have to look at some of the biggest questions. That's how we're going to spend this week, looking at the biggest questions facing the franchise, facing some of their players. So that's going to be this week. My kind of plan, at least for the first part of the offseason, is kind of building week-long kind of themes, right? So we're going to spend a week looking at, the biggest questions. We're going to spend a week looking at Mike Greer's first season. We're going to, kind of a week looking at how to kind of fix the goaltending, all that type of things. And as we kind of move towards the draft and as we get closer to the draft, we'll still have, focus more and more on the draft, and we will still have plenty of draft profiles, continue to see at least one. And as we get closer to a week, so kind of start to ramp those up here soon. But this week is the biggest questions kind of around the franchise and around some of the players. So I think the biggest question we have to start with, is Erik Karlsson and what to do with the defense. But before we do that, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/NHL60. Use code NHL60 for 60% off plus free shipping. All right, let us start with the biggest question. I think this is the biggest question hanging over the franchise right now is what to do with Erik Karlsson. Erik Karlsson coming off a career season in his Hall of Fame, his career so far. But this is the best season he's ever had statistically. 101 points, going to basically he's locked up the Norris at this point. I would be surprised, shocked. I think he's winning the Norris. So plenty of time to talk about Erik Karlsson winning the Norris. But 101 points, 25 goals, 76 assists, played all 82 games. Haven't seen that from Erik Karlsson since 2015, 2016, when he had 82 points in 82 games. 4 years left on his contract, still has $11.5 million per year. And that is the question, what to do with Erik Karlsson as Mike Greer tries to bring the Sharks kind of start to build out of the basement, start to work towards becoming a relevant team again. Do you strike while the iron is hot and try to create, make a trade? Or do you look at maybe the new system with David Quinn, not having Brent Burns, kind of the dueling banjos? Do you kind of continue to ride Erik Karlsson right now and see if, again, he is not going to repeat his 101 point season next year, but could Erik Karlsson continue to be a point per game player for the Sharks for the next couple of years? That is definitely one of the outcomes. Or Was this a statistical outlier? And we're going to see more of the oft injured Erik Karlsson, who can't get through 60, let alone 82 games. So that is the big question for the Sharks going forward, is what to do with Erik Karlsson. He does have his no move clause. So if he doesn't want to leave, he doesn't have to leave. He did say winning is still his top priority. From it sounds like with Mike Greer, he is open to everything right now and is going to kind of go into this offseason with an open mind, see if an offer blows him away, and then take it to Erik Karlsson. So again, if a team comes up and says, we'll give you 7 first-round picks for Erik Karlsson, but he doesn't want to go there, there's nothing you can do about it type of situations. So that is the kind of, what do you do with him? And it's kind of related to that is, what are you going to do with these blue line situation, right? You have basically everybody who played this year is under contract for next year on the blue line, right? Erik Karlsson, Mark-Edward Vlasic, Mario Ferraro, Radim Shimmick, Matt Benning, Henry Thrun, who you just signed, Nikolai Knizhov, you just gave an extension to, Jacob McDonald. All of these guys are under contract or still under contract for next season. And then you're going to start to have some young players knocking down the door. So Shakir Mukhamadullin, who I still think is probably a year away. I expect he'll get NHL games at some point next year, but I would not, don't pencil him in, right? But you have guys like Nick Cicek, who played played decently, but, I still think is probably suited for kind of being a 6th or 7th defenseman. Artem Kanajev, who had a really solid year for the Barracuda this year, I thought was, other than Derek Pouliot, I think he was their best defenseman. Nikita Okuda, he part of the Timo Meier. You have some guys here who are going to start to kind of push for jobs, and at some, you're going to have to kind of make way for some of these younger guys, because this defense core has basically been this, Matt Benning was a plus signing. But guys like Ferraro, Vlasic, Karlsson, they've been around, and this defense core has not really kind of met expectations, especially with the money and resources that you have put into it. And I think the defense is probably a little bit better than we expect, especially when you look at some of the analytics. But still, the Sharks were one of the worst teams last year when it comes to giving up goals. We will debate on if that's more goaltending or defense, or it's a little bit of column A, column B. But what you do with Erik Karlsson, you don't have anybody who's ready to kind of jump up and take his position as your number one defenseman. But getting a good chunk of his contract off your books and whatever assets you get back gives you flexibility going forward to go find a replacement or go do something else with him. And I think whatever the Sharks decide to do with Erik Karlsson, this is going to be a big moment with the Sharks going forward, is if you can get out from Erik Karlsson's contract while his stock is at its absolute highest right now, since it's been in when he came to San Jose, or if you want to keep Erik Karlsson and feel that you can build around him, although you're not going to get another 100-point season out of Erik Karlsson, but if you can get a point per player, 70-point guy from Erik Karlsson, and as the team continues to improve, that is a big question for general manager Mike Greer going forward, what to do with Erik Karlsson. Before we continue, we talk about the goaltending and what to do with the goaltending. I do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at Athletic Greens. If you want to get better gut health, but you know how hard it is with proper nutrition, it's really hard, right? You're busy, you're stuck at your desk, you're eating whatever you can just to get through your day. What if you could start your day with the ultimate daily nutritional insurance with a single scoop of AG1 in a glass of water? You can do just that and absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help start your day right. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up with a complicated supplement routine to recover. It cost him $100 a day, which just isn't sustainable. He created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition routine on your own, all for just around $3 a day. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with the convenient daily nutrition. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right. The second biggest question, I think, is the goaltending. And that is really, really what sunk the Sharks' season this year, was the goaltending. Last year, they got mediocre-ish. The 2021-22 season, they got mediocre-ish. It was better than what we had gotten from the past couple seasons with Martin Jones and Aaron Dell and whomever they kind of threw out there at the end of the season. This year, between Kappo Kahkonen, who finished second worst in the NHL in goals saved above expected, only behind Elvis Merzlikins. Kappo Kahkonen played 37 games, had 135 goals against. His expected goals against was 140.2. So he let in basically 25 more goals than expected. His save percentage, goals saved above expected, was points per 60. So basically, for every 60 minutes, he let in 0.7 more goals than an average goaltender would. So definitely was not the season that we had hoped for from Kappo Kahkonen. And, I think the Sharks realized that Kappo Kahkonen might not be the answer for their kind of long-term goaltending options. I think this is a really big summer for Kappo Kahkonen to try to refine his game, why he was, an AHL goalie of the year, kind of why he was such a kind of a prize prospect before. And then James Reimer, 43 games played this year, had 147 goals against. Expected goals against was 135.69. Basically gave up minus 11.3 goals more than expected. Goals saved above expected per 60 was 0.267. So basically for every 60 minutes played, he gave up a quarter of a goal more than you would expect. Well, it doesn't sound like a lot over 43 games. You get my point here. Reimer, who's a free agent after this year, Mike Grier basically said, "Thank you for your services, James. We will, but we will not be, most likely we will not be re-signing, especially 35 years old." I think there's plenty of other options that we will get into as potential, but trying to continue to solve this number one goaltender for the Sharks. And I know they're not projected to be a good team next year, at least as of right now, but it would be nice to start to have some answers to those questions, right? None of the young guys are really kind of ready to take on that mantle, right? Eetu Makiniemi dealing with some injuries. He looks solid. He looked good in the little bit of NHL time he got, but at least in the AHL was solid, but couldn't take the job over Aaron Dell. And they rode Aaron Dell at the end of the season trying to make the playoffs. In all the biggest games, Aaron Dell was a starter. And a lot of times they were going Aaron Dell back to back as they're trying to win these games, right? And I know Makiniemi was hurt. They shut him down at the end of the season with the hip injury. Strauss-Mann. Again, another young guy who's played, started the season in the ECHL, played has played some games with the Barracuda, but I think that's a lot to ask some of these young guys to just jump in and be like, okay, you're an NHL goaltender right now. And we know Mike Grier's plan is to, make these guys earn it, right? You saw that guy with William Eklund, Thomas Bordeleau, a lot of these young players, he's not just going to hand them jobs. He wants them to go out and earn it. I don't think that's going to be any different with the goaltenders. I expect Mike Grier to be very, very active to try to find an answer to the Sharks' goaltending problems. They haven't had an answer since they traded for Martin Jones. And Martin Jones, the second contract was bad. The first contract was great. Martin Jones was a great goaltender for the Sharks in their first contract. The 6x6 or whatever they gave him, that didn't turn out very well. So Sharks, that is, can you find a number one goaltender this offseason? Or the prospect of a number one goaltender. That is the biggest, I think the second biggest question for the Sharks is trying to solve their goaltending issues. And you can have amazing forwards, you can have a great defensive system, but if your goaltenders are just leaking goals, it doesn't matter what happens. And that was a big reason why the Sharks were such a bad team this year, was any mistake, the goalie couldn't kind of cover up for that mistake, right? And I said it all season long, any mistake turned catastrophic because the goalies were just that poor. That is Mike Grier's second biggest thing, is finding a goalie. If it's a veteran, if you have to trade, if you sign a free agent, draft somebody, I don't know. It's hard to trade for goalie prospects because there's such a coveted thing. So it's going to be tough there. So I expect Mike Grier to try to go out and find a veteran who can come in and be the number one guy for the Sharks for the next couple of years, and let Kappo Kahkonen kind of see if he can figure out this game this year. And then if not, next year you have some options and potential in Makanemi, Straussman, Magnus Corona. You have some guys who, with another year of experience under their belt, playing either full-time in the AHL, starting to get some NHL games next year. Again, I don't think any of these guys are ready to kind of burn down the world and become number one goaltenders, or even have the top-end projection to be a number one goaltender. But can you find somebody who can at least be solid in net and isn't going to be a liability anytime a defensive breakdown happens? So that is Mike Grier's second biggest thing this offseason, is to find some goaltending help for the Sharks, who have struggled to find goaltending help for a very, very long time. So before we get into the final question, biggest question for the Sharks, and that's based on how do you add talent? What is your plan of attack for the forwards this offseason? Is it be aggressive and add talent, or are you going to be slow and let your young guys develop? Let's take a quick break. Let you guys know. First of all, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen every day. Every dayers, tomorrow on the show, we're going to be talking about Logan Couture. And his big question is, was this a statistical anomaly, or can we count on Logan Couture to age gracefully going forward? Can we count on another kind of big season from Logan Couture going forward? So make sure you guys are tapping in wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along on YouTube as well. So yes, we're talking about the captain tomorrow, Logan Couture, who, congrats to him, is going to be having a little boy soon in this offseason. So big offseason for Couture. But now, though, the final biggest question for Mike Grier and the Sharks this offseason is, how are you going to kind of attack the forwards, right? You know, guys who are coming back for sure, right? We know for sure Tomas Hertl's going to be back. We know Logan Couture is going to be back. Lindblom, Barabanov, Nico Sturm, Steven Lorentz, those guys all are going to be back among the veterans, right? Expected to be back, right? I think Noah Gregor earned himself another contract with his play in the offseason, or down the stretch. He's an RFA. Jacob Peterson, you just traded for him. Mike Grier has been very happy with him. RFA. Fabian Zetterlund, you just got him in the Timo Meier deal. RFA. Svechnikov, probably, maybe, if it becomes a numbers game. Luke Cunnin will be back. He's coming off knee surgery or torn ACL, so you wonder how that goes with him. Those are the guys you expect to be back. William Eklund will be, he's going to be coming off shoulder surgery, but should be ready for training camp, ready to be, I would expect him to be an opening night San Jose Shark. But you're going to have a little bit of cap space this offseason, right? The Sharks are, according to Cap Friendly, projected about $15 million. That includes some, you're going to have some of that eaten away when you bring Eklund back up, and you're going to have to sign a goaltender and stuff. But you can have a little bit of money. So if you want to kind of, I don't want to say big game hunting, but if you want to try to go out and be a little bit more aggressive, you can do that, especially since you don't have any big time contracts this off season. for the Sharks to kind of, you don't know big contracts that you're going to be handing out for some of your own guys this year. So, or is Mike Grier going to be patient, try to build through the draft, build through trades, signing? We've seen how he's attacked the blue line, right? Trading for younger prospects, trading for guys, Shakir Mukhamadullin, you traded for Henry Thrundrate, you've seen Mike Grier attack the blue line. How is he going to start to attack the forwards, which needs, especially after Timo Meier leaving, they need some help scoring goals, right? They need somebody who can go out there and be a 30, 35 goal scorer. Do you trade that Devils pick for a young, talented player? Maybe someone in Ottawa who's probably not going to re-sign Alex Brinkett. Do you go out and try to be aggressive in the free agency market? Plenty of options out there to try to add some immediate scoring help to see if you want to maybe take the team from one of the worst teams in the NHL. And then you kind of talk, hey, if we get some better goaltending help, we don't lose 16 overtime losses. We had a little bit more scoring depth. Okay, then you can maybe start to talk yourself into this type of situation. So I think how Mike Grier goes into this offseason and tries what he does with his salary cap, especially to try to help the forward department who needs some help. They need some top six guys. The Sharks have plenty of middle six, bottom six guys, right? You look at last year's signings, like none of those guys really, other than Nico Sturm, and Nico Sturm was signed to be basically your 4C, kind of took over the 3C job from Nick Bonino and did a great job with it. Helped, I think his arrival really helped Logan Couture find his offensive game again. But Barabanov, is a great player, 45, 50-point season, but again, a lot of it is the assists and setting up the other guys. Noah Gregor's the most streaky guy ever, can go, is basically scoring a goal a month, and then at the end of the season found some scoring touch, right? Jacob Peterson, who I thought a great addition for the Sharks, but again, kind of the Barabanov 9-game sample size type of thing. Fabian Zetterlund, we'll see with the new system, if maybe a whole off season in the new system, actually learning, kind of being with the team, all that's, if he can find his offensive game. What do you do with Kevin Labanc? Labanc was in Queen's doghouse for a long time, but we know Labanc can score. I don't know if Labanc can be a 30 or 35 goal scorer. He's probably a 20 to 25 goal scorer in a career year for him. But the Sharks need somebody who can be that guy. And you continue to wait for your prospects to develop, like Daniel Gushin, who had an amazing end to the Barracuda season. I think he's going to be playing a lot of NHL games next season, especially around Christmas time. I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of those kind of Christmas call-ups and you never see him in the AHL again. Bysted, I don't think he's coming over next year. A lot of your prospects are college guys who are going to be there for a little bit. So it's not like you have some guy who's just going to magically kind of drop into your lap and be that guy. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how Mike Grier utilizes kind of the first amount of cap space the Sharks have had in a little bit. And especially if you trade Erik Karlsson and then you free up another, $7 million of cap space. And then all of a sudden you're going to the offseason with $25 million. Then you can kind of remake this team on the fly here. So, so wanted to set the table. Kind of the biggest questions for the Sharks heading into this offseason. Again, Erik Karlsson, I think, is the number one. What do you do with Erik Karlsson? Because I think what you do with Karlsson kind of sets the table for everything else. If you keep Karlsson, right, then you can kind of build around him, know what you have going into free agency, at least your spending power, right? Or if you're spending power into the draft, how many draft picks you have, what type of draft picks you have, if you want to flip those for players, et cetera, et cetera. I think number two is trying to find a goaltending answer, and we'll spend some time looking at potential goaltending answers in the future. Plenty of time to get into all that stuff. Number 3 is how aggressive do you want to be this offseason and try to add scoring depth, or not just scoring, add scoring, legitimate scoring to this team that needs a guy, especially since Timo Meier is no longer in the picture. So those are, I think, the 3 big questions. We'll be back tomorrow to talk about Logan Couture. We have another draft profile coming up. So plenty of stuff. Going to make up, so expect 6 episodes this week and probably 6 episodes next week as we, again, make up for missing a couple days from vacation. So make sure you guys are following along wherever you get podcasts. So subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do. So Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube as well, where all episodes drop first on YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Again, thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Go check out Locked On NHL. They got plenty of amazing playoff stuff. I don't know what the playoffs are. Could you imagine me covering a playoff game? What a world that would be. So until tomorrow, bye, friends.